Welcome, students. Today I am going to teach the third chapter of Moment Book for ninth class. The name of the chapter is Iswaran the Storyteller. So let's start reading the story. The story was narrated to Ganesh by a young man, Mahindra, by name. He was a junior supervisor in a firm which offered on hire supervisor at various types of construction sites, factories, bridges, dams, and so on. Mahindra's job was to keep an eye on the activities at the worksite. He had to keep moving from place to place every now and then, as ordered by his head office. For a local coal mining area to a railway bridge construction site, from there after a few months to a chemical plant which was coming up somewhere. So, students, a young man whose name was Mahindra, he was narrated a story to Ganesh. Mahindra was a supervisor in a firm. His work is to keep an eye on the activities of worksite. The nature of his job was to move from one place to another place. Once the job would be over, he used to shift it to another construction site. He was a bachelor, his needs were simple, and he was able to adjust himself to all kinds of odd conditions, whether it was an ill equipped circuit house or a makeshift canvas tent in the middle of the stone quarry. But one asset he had was his cook, Iswaran. He cook is quite attached to Mahindra and followed him uncomplainingly wherever he was posted. He cooked food for Mahindra, washed his clothes, and chatted away with his master at night. He could weave out endless stories and anecdotes on various subjects. Mahindra's needs were simple as he was a bachelor. He was able to live in odd conditions too, whether it was a circuit house or a canvas tent. He had kept a servant named Ishwaran for his domestic work. He followed Mahindra without any complaint. He cooked food for him, he washed him his clothes, and told him stories at night. And Mahindra used to enjoy these stories. Ishwaran also had an amazing capacity to produce vegetables and cooking ingredients, seemingly out of nowhere in the middle of the desolate landscape with no shop visible for miles around. He would miraculously conjure up the most delicious dishes made with fresh vegetables within an hour of arriving at the zinc sheet shelter at the new workplace. So, Ishwaran also had an amazing capacity to produce vegetable and cooking ingredients. He was a fabulous cook. He could produce the fresh vegetable in the middle of the bleak and dismal land. Desolate means a place where nothing can be grown. Means the place is bleak and dismal. He could grow vegetables and such type of land. He used to cook tasty food quickly within an hour, arriving from one place to another. Mahindra would be up early in the morning and leave for work after breakfast, carrying some prepared food with him. Meanwhile, Ishwaran would tidy up the shed, wash the clothes, and have a leisurely bath, pouring several buckets of water over his head. Muttering a prayer all the while, it would be lunch time by then. After eating, he would read for a while before dozing off. The book was usually some particular Tamil thriller running to hundreds of pages. Its imaginative description and narrative flourish would hold Ishwaran in thrall. So Mahindra would be up early in the morning, and he used to go for work after having breakfast, and he used to carry some prepared food for him. And after his going, Ishwaran would tidy up the shed, means he clears the shed, wash his clothes, and have a leisurely bath. And after some time, he used to take lunch And then dozing off. Dozing off means he rest for a while. And then he used to read some Tamil thrillers. And these stories was of hundreds of pages. Its imaginative description and narrative flourishes would hold Ishwaran in thrall. Means the imaginative description of these books overpowered Ishwaran. He enjoyed all these stories. His own descriptions were greatly influenced by the Tamil authors that he read. When he was narrating even the smallest of incident, he would try to work in suspense and a surprise ending into the account. For example, instead of saying that he had come across an uprooted tree on the highway, he would say, with eyebrows suitably arched and hands held out in the dramatic gesture, the road was deserted and I was all alone. Suddenly I spotted something that looked like an enormous bushy beech lying sprawled across the road. I was half inclined to turn and go back, but as I come closer, I saw that it was a fallen tree. With its dry branches spread out, Mahindra would stretch himself back in the canvas chair and listen to Ishwaran's tales uncritically. Here, Ishwaran used to read stories, so his own description were influenced by these stories that he read. He was narrating a small incident with great suspense. He used to tell small things in exaggerated way. Here, an example of given of his narrative skill. The place I come from are famous for timber. Ishwaran would begin. There is a richly wooded forest all around. The logs are hauled on to the lorries by elephants. They are huge, well fed beasts. When they turn wild, even the most experienced Mahavat is not able to control them. After his prologue, Ishwaran would launch into an elaborate anecdote involving an elephant. One day, Ishwaran told Mahendran a story of a mad elephant. He was narrating a small incident with suspense. He had a quality to introduce the story with an interesting start. He starts, once there was a place that was famous for timber. Elephants were used there to load lorries. Hauled on means to push. So, here the elephants were used to push the blocks of wood on the lorries by elephant. The elephants were huge and well fed beasts. He said, when the elephants were turned wild, no one can control it. One day a tusker escaped from the timber yard and began roam about, stamping on bushes, tearing up wild creepers and breaking branches at will. You know, sir, how can elephant behaves when it goes mad? Ishwaran would get to catch up in the excitement of his own story that he would get up from the floor and jumped about, stamping his feet in emulation of the mad elephant. Here, tusker means a male elephant. He said the tusker escaped out of a timber yard. He destroyed everything that came in his way. Ishwaran, while telling the story, he did the same expression as elephant did.